Welcome to our evening show, the LEB show. And we have with us today, this evening here the distinguished performer, Lulu. Lulu has recently made a show called, what was the name of that show again? What was the name of that show again?
Is this a senior moment?
It is a senior moment for seniors. Well, the show was...
Missile, Love, and...
No. It was Missiles, Marriage and War.
What?
Missiles, Marriage and War.
MMB.
MMB.
Mention that.
No. War does not start with a B. War starts with a W.
What is it? Missiles, War.
No, Missiles, Marriage and War.
MMW, I think about MMB.
You're thinking of MMMs. Well, to tell you the truth, that was the hope of the producer, the director, and even the performer here, Lulu, that it would have been a box office hit. Unfortunately, it was a flop.
What?
A flop
As
meaning it
bad
was...
as that?
Well, yes. According to the ratings, the show really went down very badly. It could not have been helped.
Well,
And there are
I
some
am very
aspects...
disappointed about that.
Well,
But I knew that there were some areas I did not cover efficiently.
when you get to elaborate at this point, Ms.
Of
Lulu,
course, I would love to clear I don't want my good record to be spoiled.
go right ahead.
So I felt like, for example, the idea about marriage, and I did not elaborate sufficiently about my gut feeling about war and bride who has to, their husband has to leave them.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that if we now are in a war zone, it means that our young men may have to be going out.
Mm-hmm.
They be called from 18 years of age to go out there to perform. And I think of how sad for our young ladies. You know, when something is happening in Iran and America and Europe, we're not affected. But when it comes home, it is really a very difficult thing. Your grandsons might be going out to be soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
Your granddaughters, if things get desperate, I don't know if they ever call women, but I know for a fact that all young men, when there is war, over 18 years are called. And I think of my grandsons, I think of my cousins, my nephews, great nephews, and and I think of those who might be married, the trauma, the emotions to leave your wife behind. She might be pregnant, she might just have had a baby, and now you are not just going out there to do a 3 months safe job and you'll be returning, but here it is, you may never come back. And the emotions that went with that, and my feeling, I felt that I did not express that sufficiently, because it is a very traumatizing thing for a young bride to be separated from her husband with the thought that she may never see him again. Her young baby would never know her father or his father. And that makes war so horrible. So
Indeed,
horrible.
indeed.
So many young people get killed. And you think of wounded, and they have to be still. They are wounded in this war, and they have to be going still. They have to be caring for their mate to try to help them. It is really sad.
So, do you believe that in the plot of that Missiles, Marriage and War, it was not sufficiently developed?
That's right. It was a very well thought of plan. It was not orchestrated by...
Is that the fault of the director or the producer? There seem to have been some little gray areas that were unavoided. I mean, unavoidable. For instance, at the end of the performance there, the rain came down, and that was not part of the plot, I'm sure.
No, it was not. And because we felt that doing it outdoor, it would really create the ambience of being hidden in the bushes versus in a room. So the whole idea of doing it outdoor was perfect. But of course, we have no control over God's, what God does.
Yes.
So we have to accept that act of the Lord. So I will not blame the producer or myself for that. Of course, we kind of had to cut the whole show a little shorter because of, but that to me was fine. But for myself, I rated myself not so good.
Not so good. So the follow-up after the performance, did you get a feedback from your producer, director? Was he satisfied? Were they satisfied with what went on?
Well, not yet. They have not said anything.
They have not said anything.
I am of myself. I felt I did not give of my very best.
Do you think that little mishap, you want to call it, and that little falling short would have affected your image? Are you an image person by any chance?
Not at all. Not at all.
What do you try to portray in your presentations?
My whole goal is to really reach out to young people, reach out to those who are going through trying times, particularly marriage, in the area of marriage. I'm not a marriage counselor, but I love to be able to help. And what I want for my children, I desire to give it to others. And, today I went to the mall and it was quite humorous to me when a lady said to me, "Are you the famous vlogger?" And I laughed and she said, "Yes, you are." That laugh doesn't hide.
So this laugh that you have, now that you brought this up, this laughter that you portray, it is not forced, is it? It's not a fake.
By no means. I grew up in the country. And I think that, you were free-spirited in the country. So we can laugh and we can cry and nobody suppressed your emotions. And when you are free and not constrained by people, you laugh too loud or you shouldn't cry in the public. No, these things are all part of who you are. And if you can cry at a drop of a pin, that's okay, but you don't cry with every pin that falls. And if you could laugh and it's worth laughing, you laugh. So when you laugh, the world laughs at you.
You talk about crying there, and you can cry freely if you would like. In that segment there where you heard the gunshots and then you began to cry. For me as a viewer, I thought it was not. It lacked a little more emotion. Did you find yourself hard pressed to pull that part off?
You think I should have been a little more emotional?
You should have been a little more emotional. It was traumatic, listening to all the gunfire and all of these things, and the stress of having waited 3 days to be in touch with your base, as you all call it. But I think it. But as you say, there were constraints to the entire production, and maybe you were affected. Maybe Maybe your thoughts were rambling about this matter of war. Were you confused? You seem to have a little confusion on your face at the time.
Yes, it's all brand new. I was confused. All these gunshots I've never heard of in my life except in the movies. And here I am. It's real. It's all around me. And it was getting closer. So I was really confused and I was hungry.
I noticed in most of your productions you seem to have an affinity with food.
I love food.
You had a great background when it comes to food, right?
Yes, we grew up in the country and we had no parents, but we always had food.
Your parents died when you were very young?
Very young. I was 11.
Oh, 11.
My mother died when I was 11 and my father died at 13. But we had a lot of love in the house and there was always food by God's provision.
God's provision. Truly. So and now, but you are married, aren't you? I understand you're married.
Yes, of course.
How does your husband feel when you have to go off on these sets?
But you are my husband.
Really?
No. How can my husband feel when he's with me?
Well, I want to know. I want to know when, is your husband pressing you too hard to be in these shows?
Not at all.
Because the intent of the show really is to provide a platform for unity, especially among married people, right?
Yes.
But
I'm sure if it was another man was acting with me, or I wouldn't make more than one show.
I'll probably fire him. I'll probably fire him instantly. Yes. How do your children feel about your, at an advantage, this kind of public appeal that is emanating from you? Like you said at the mall, this woman greeted you. How does it go down with your children? Do you think your children approve of what is happening?
Well, I think our son Lyndon, he's happy that we are, involved in something that is particularly that I always liked. Mm-hmm. Talking with young people and so on. So now I think that he feels glad that I have something in my older age to keep me going and motivated to help others. So he's fine, but I'm not too sure about the girls.
What about the girls?
Well, how they really feel,
But what do you think they feel?
I think they would rather me not being too much limelight.
But your work is positive, yeah? It is nothing, on the objectionable side.
Yeah.
It's not objectionable at all. So, you have any plans for the future as regards these productions again that might be able to help young people go on?
Yes, as time go on and through experience, you might just come up and say, hey, this is a nice something to share.
One of the things I noticed that was said in that little show, Marriage and Missiles and War, that you had no experience as regards divorce. But truly you would know people who have had divorce, have been divorced.
Yes.
And therefore you might have a word or two to help those in that situation, you think?
Yes. I would say that divorce should be the last resort.
It should be.
Yes. If things are really impossible to live with the person, if it's your partner is abusive, I'm not going to say if your husband is abusive, because I know of cases where women are abusive. So if it's an abusive relationship that meant, being beaten and so, I will say, well then surely one need to be safe. But if it is just misunderstandings, which I think in marriage a lot of times is misunderstanding. So divorce doesn't have to be your first option as soon as there's a problem. Long ago, I think even in our time when we get married, you don't run away from the first problem you have, or the first misunderstanding, or the first quarrel. In every marriage, there will be things that we disagree with, and that is okay because we've come from different backgrounds. But what you have to learn to do is to work with what you have. And if you want to work with what you have, then you don't have an option of divorce. And communication, as I say, to communicate with each other, to talk about how you feel, to express that you love each other, and where are we going if we continue like this, what is going to happen? Divorce will be the result. But you have your children to think about. Your children, no matter how young they are or how much older they are, they want their mommy and daddy together because they love both people.
Yes.
But the problem is you and I cannot get along. The children love you as a father, love you as a mother, and they want both of you in the same house. So we are adults. We have to learn to get along with each other. We have to learn to compromise with each other. We have to have consideration with each other, and love and respect. Love and respect, and we are teaching our children love and respect. If we get divorced at the first 2 years of our marriage, we have not even given it a chance. How are you going to teach your child to love and respect? When mommy walked away from the marriage or daddy walked away from the marriage, I can do the same. But when parents through thick and thin, yes, you're going to have problems, but divorce must be the last resort. Because remember, if you divorce at a pretty early age, you will be marrying again, and it will be the whole process again of learning a new person. If you, in your marriage, you have learned and understand and accept and appreciate each other for who they are, you have something to work with. But if you throw that away and then you get into a new relationship, it's another year or two to learn who this new person is in your life. So why not work on what you have? Try to mend it. Take a vacation. Take time out and recreate. Fan the smoke and see if the fire could light again.
You did a lot of that in the country, fan the smoke, eh?
Yes, you know.
Over the cold
you
pot.
know, throw fire, water, fan it, no man. And then you see a little spark, and then you add some coconut shell or something, and you know.
Yes,
You have to keep the fire burning. Don't give up.
Sound like you want to be a healthy country girl, you know.
You can see it, man.
Oh, Louise.
So young people out there, really and truly, just don't see divorce as the first option. Let that be the third or fourth or the fifth. Give it your 5 fingers. Give it a chance. Talk to each other. Talk to people who can help you. You know, another thing is, our friend get divorced. And she doing good, you know. So I think I need to walk away myself. Sometimes
That's a trend.
That's a trend. And sometimes that person may not be doing as well as you think.
How many years your folks were married before that?
Maybe about 20 years.
20 years.
And your folks were very old.
My folks were married for 57 years.
Yeah.
And mother died on the one day after the 57th anniversary.
Yeah.
She couldn't take the old man any longer.
But so we have good background.
Yeah.
We have good background.
Yeah.
That, you know. Because one of the things I always admired about your parents, I mean, I was young when my parents died, so I don't have too much memories. What I remember of my mother, that she was so busy taking care of 10 children that she was always cooking. Maybe that's where it came from.
Were you always cooking too?
Yeah, she was always cooking from breakfast to lunch to dinner, and then in between making snacks like sugar cake, and I don't remember she making fudge, but sugar cake and, you know, cakes, and she was always...
So that had a great impression. That made a great impression.
Yes.
That here's a home giver, a caregiver.
She was,
Yeah,
indeed.
you know, here's somebody who loves her children and wants to keep them happy.
Yes,
And-
and life was not easy for her. Life was not easy, but she stuck it with her children. Life wasn't easy because my impression, whenever anyone asks me about my mother, I always say, all I can think about, she was so busy attending.
But do you think our young people
To
want
her
to be
family.
that busy? They don't. Would they see that as slavery, a
Yes.
slavish life?
Yes, I would think so. I would think so. But, you know, she was just, as far as I'm concerned, just happy to be attending to her children. And my dad, we call him Papa and Mama, he was also a very busy man, making an honest living, having animals, seeing about the animals and so.
Yeah.
And often he would, on a Saturday, he would go and get fruits for us, go and buy cane and different fruits and come and peel everything for you, oranges, everything. And so we had a good childhood background.
Very good.
And also, I often admire your parents. No food today, only water.
Water. You ate
All
everything.
this talking and no food.
You ate everything in the house.
So, and father, you know, he was such a good old man, you know. When I got married, I saw him as an old man, because I was 20 and he would have been in
But people don't want to hear
50s.
elderly folk again.
Yeah, and
You know?
I really admire his attentive style to mother.
Mm-hmm.
You know, mother would go to races, we will go to races, and when we come back, father is always, you know, busy preparing dinner, setting the table, and, you know, have things
Yes,
going
and
for her.
we saw those things, and they made an impression.
It passed on to, you know. And your family, all of you, nobody never divorced.
No.
You know,
No.
so it
Divorce.
has a lot to do with your upbringing, and that's why we have a responsibility to our children, and our children have a responsibility to their children, and that value can be passed on and make better citizens of tomorrow. Tomorrow's child is always important.
But let me ask you this. If a couple reaches the brink where one feels it's impossible to go on, what option really does that person have?
Well, I know of a few cases that things were really bad, and one decides to walk away just to breeze off,
Right.
take time out,
Mhm.
and they were like apart for a couple months. Well, but she allowed the father to visit the child, and when he saw that you know, she was serious about separating and, you know, moving on, they both seek counsel, and it helped.
It helped.
I know 2 or 3 people
Well, you see, that the drive is to save.
to save.
The drive
And
is to
that
save.
time
It must
out,
be to save.
That's right. It's not with the intention of divorce, but it's with the intention to just let us see each other from apart. Not take each other for granted. Not be at loggerheads. And you find yourself now probably start communicating a little more.
That's
Because you could be in the same house with your partner, and day in, day out, you're not saying anything to each other. And it just makes the wall bigger and bigger and bigger. But if you remove yourself from the environment, then you find that that person will start to miss you. Now they have to make their own breakfast. Well, I mean, you're making your breakfast all these years, so
Yes,
that
yes,
wouldn't
yes.
matter to you.
I'm practicing. Practicing.
But, you know, the clothes start piling up, baskets of dirty clothes.
But
not
we don't
washing.
want one pattern to get the impression that you have been a slave, and you want now to have this person return to this form of slavery. What we really want is a mutual platform.
Right. Well, when they are separated from each other, and the person who was on the receiving end of the wife doing everything would then realize what is all of this she used to do?
Okay. Okay. So it is. Yes. Yes.
So then
You're highlighting the importance of the person in your life.
that's right,
Okay.
and vice versa. Vice versa. The wife, she's away from the husband now. She have it much easier. No running around picking up dirty clothes, washing and all of that. So she's focusing on the children and makes herself busy seeing about the children, and then realize these children need their father.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I see a lot of women, even in this area here. You know, you could tell this woman or this man is a single parent.
Yes.
And it's a sad
It
sight.
is.
It is a sad sight.
Yeah, I have seen there are times when we went out for dinner and you will see a father comes with his 2 children and you see obviously he and his wife separated.
Yeah,
and he's trying hard to make them happy, and the children, you could see they're happy to be with their daddy but they're missing their mommy.
Yes.
And vice versa.
Well, I want to thank you for the time that you spent here in the studio.
Well, I hope it's more profitable than the last one.
I hope so myself. Well, let's hope that your next venture, whatever it might be, will be a success, and we look forward to seeing you. And we would like to hear that famous laugh that this lady spoke about. That will end this session on a high note.